Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, the automotive show where we bring all things automotive, variable ops, fixed ops, you name it, we talk about it. And we bring on the experts to share what they do to make our business better. And I'm excited every week because somehow, some way, I connect with these people that are just gems in our business that really bring value. I've got some valued partners. I've got some valued future partners, all that come on the show. And there's one reason that we're on here, and that is to make our business better. And today I have with us John Traver from TRAVER CONNECT. He is no stranger to the automotive business. I think we were both born in the automotive business, actually. And he's done a lot of great things. For those that don't know John, there might be one or two of you out there. Welcome to the show, John. I'd like you to tell everybody a little bit about who you are, how you got here, some of the incredible stuff you've done.
Yes, Paul. Well, wow, that's quite a bit. The show will be over, I guess. Hey, first of all, thanks for having us, TRAVER CONNECT. I'm representing our team here in Dallas. It's great to be with you on Sunday night. My role is, as CEO, is really Paul Revere, right? I'm supposed to be out there looking over the ridge and saying, okay, here's where our role fits in fixed ops as TRAVER CONNECT. And then recently we added sales BDC back to our mix. Of course, as you know, Paul, I started in the sales BDC side. I copywrote and trademarked BDC in 91, and Toyota called, and that's kind of how we got our start and really put that on the map. And that's where BDC kind of got its momentum. So great partnerships with great people, and of course, great people at TRAVER Technologies, which I sold to ADP in 2000. And then in 2011, started TRAVER CONNECT. I stayed at ADP 10 years, by the way, which I really wasn't planning to do. Bought another company in 2004, thought I was going to leave, ended up investing and staying at ADP, investing in that company. It was in self-storage, commercial real estate. It was a contact center, handled payment processing, tenant support. And you fast forward 6 more years from 2004 to 2010, and we were at a place with ADP and TRAVER Technologies where I was able to hand the keys off to Bob Gower, and Bob kept running that company. I left and started TRAVER CONNECT here in Dallas. So, we've answered millions and millions of service calls since 2011. We have software that we give stores to support their service BDCs that automates this process in a way that you would do it, with hundreds of agents, but you can do it with 5 people. We take calls for the stores. We make calls for the stores. Our passion is figuring out how less is more, right? How to accomplish what you got to accomplish in a short period of time with very few words and kind of just really getting right at it. And there's a way to do that. So we run into leaders like you in the industry. I remember running into you recently. I guess it was pre-COVID, right? It was that February.
Yeah.
You and I were in Vegas.
Yeah.
And then so since then we've just had a chance to kind of run alongside one another, and we enjoy dealer vendor match. You've been very good to us, gracious to us, and we have clients that have come to us through your portal. So thank you for leading well there as also. So yeah, there you go.
Awesome. All right. Well, I have a couple of comments here to get caught up on. I do my best to go back and forth and not miss anybody. So I do apologize in advance if I do. Starting off with my brother from another mother, Paul Machine. Says, good evening, my brother. Frederick Subprime Hero. What's up, brother? And Paul says, Freddie, what's up? Freddie says, hey, Machine. Man, it was great to see a digital dealer, my friend. And Ron Usher, my favorite retired master tech. Did you know there was such a thing as a retired master tech? I never knew there was such a thing until I met Ron Usher. Great guy. We got Mark Williamson in the house. Says hello, everyone. And Jeff Daniels.
There's Jeff.
With that M.A. Bell thing.
Ma Bell. Jeff, you nailed it, buddy. And by the way, Paul, apparently you come from a very large family with all these brothers, right?
Apparently. Brian Cates says good evening. And Paul Machine says, looking forward to great conversation. All right, with that, I'm going to paint a scenario that I'm sure nobody here experiences. However, I bumped into it a couple of times, and I think it might be relevant to jumpstart our conversation. So today, there's not a lot we can sell inventory-wise. We've all beat that horse to death. So now the refocus, not that it ever should have been out of focus, but the refocus is on fixed operations, because that's really always been our main profit center. Right now, sales, yes, we're making money hand over fist, probably more money than we made before with a fraction of the cars, but don't get too comfortable just yet, because that is not a long-term situation. We are in a bubble. And we all know that when bubbles, they get bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually the bubble pops. And then what you're left with is a bunch of stuff that falls to the ground. But in the service world, one common problem I've seen with so many people in so many different stores across the country, nobody can ever get enough help. Nobody. And one of the biggest problems that happens is we tax the crap out of these service advisors. So when their day starts at 7 or 7:30, depending on when your store opens, you've got usually not enough service reps to take care of all the scheduled appointments, plus all of the unscheduled people that just show up because they think we're magicians. The door says we open at 7:30, so guess what? They expect us to be fully up to speed and running on all cylinders at 7 or 7:30 a.m. when that door opens. And then at the same time, you got all the drop-offs. Now, I don't know about you, but I have customer syndrome, meaning that if I dropped my car off before you opened or the night before, guess what? At 7:31 a.m., I'm going to call, hey, what's up with my car? I dropped it off. I expect service like I was standing right in front of you because I dropped off before all these other people did, and then add to the mix the cars that are left over, because that happens every once in a while also. And now you've got those people that want their cars back. And as a bonus, the technician's waiting for you to communicate stuff with the customer. So basically, it's like walking into Manhattan gridlock and not knowing what side am I going to cross because there's traffic coming from everywhere, and as a result, nothing happens. And I want to tell you that we have a personal client who reached out to John through the portal, and quote unquote, it's one of the best things that we ever did, because what happens is it frees the advisors up to do the things they need to be doing and focus on that. And with that, this gentleman's telling me 15 to 20 additional service appointments per day. Do the math. You're open, what, 25, 26 days a month in service? You're making how much per ticket? That's a lot of money. So calls. Why don't we start with calls? You have inbound calls, you have outbound calls. How do you help with alleviating the call?
Good. I want to say to our audience, because we have a really nice sized group here started. John Frazier, so good to see you, brother. Thank you for being here. So if you have questions while I'm talking, I'll take this anywhere. It's Sunday night. It's just us. So wherever you guys want to take this, I'll go and answer any questions you guys have. Okay. So what do? Well, our job is to respond to the need, right? So the problem you have is you have more calls than you have people, right?
Every day.
Yep. And one of the things that I find, okay, so my background, I had 25 years in sales. So why is that important? Doing the sales BDC thing, because sales, when you look at BDC, you think BDC and you think it's all the same. And I made that mistake. So the first thing I want to tell you is where I screwed up. When I started this in 2011, after leaving ADP, I had some assumptions, and there were quite a few of those assumptions, folks, that I was wrong on. One of the things that I discovered that I liked was on the calls coming in is the predictability is very steady. You get about 9 or 10% of your calls every hour. starting at 7 o'clock until 6 p.m. So we've decked millions of calls here, millions, literally, since 2011, and tens of millions. And so what we can see is by the minute of every hour of every day of each day of the week. So I'll give you some quick numbers and you can jot this down. Mondays, you're going to get 21% of your calls for the week. Some stores will gust to 23, but 21 is a pretty safe number. Tuesdays, you're going to get 19% of your calls. Wednesday for the week. Wednesday, you're going to get 17. Thursday, you're going to get 17. Friday, you're going to get about 15. And Saturday, you're somewhere between 7 and 9%. And if you add that up, that's going to get you to 10. So it's kind of like the inverted ski slope. You start on a Monday. And so all of us know tomorrow morning, here it is Sunday night, tomorrow morning, we put our bulletproof vests on, right? And we're walking into the store and here it comes. So the first problem you have is if in a perfect world, you remember the Keystone beer commercials, everyone, it was like, wouldn't it be great if? So wouldn't it be great if we all had enough people that tomorrow morning we wouldn't miss a call? Calls wouldn't hold, an unrealistic amount of time, and every customer would be handled properly. The question is, what would happen by the time you got to Wednesday? You'd have some time on your hands, right? And so the challenge is that getting enough people, even when you have a service BDC, you're going to find that Monday, Tuesday deal, you're kind of getting hit right here, no matter what you do. The second problem is not everybody shows for work as agreed. And so now, it's like Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth. And then the question is, what do you do? Right. So same thing. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, we have enough people. So what is enough? I'll give you a couple more numbers. If you're writing for every, I'm going to give you percentages first. And this is stuff I didn't know until I looked at it a million times, right? So you start seeing the pattern. Then the dumbest guy in the room can look at it and go, hey, there's a ratio here. You can see this. And so I want to share that with you tonight. So the first one is about 70% of your ROs, and that's customer pay, warranty pay, are going to generate a call. Now, put an asterisk by that number because right now, post-COVID, if I can call it that, we're running about 158% of normal, our call volume. So in other words, let's say, Paul, we have your store and we've been with your store for years. We're running almost 1.6 calls for what used to be one call. So we're taking more calls. So there's a couple of things that have happened. It is a dramatic increase. And we're just talking service right now. We can get to sales tonight. If you guys want to talk sales, we can talk sales because we have sales stuff too. But on the service side, you got a couple problems that happen. First of all, we've written 300 plus million ROs in the United States for the last roughly 4 or 5 years. Check out your NADA numbers. And every once in a while, when I'll do workshops, I'll show everyone the trend. And so last year, we didn't hit 300. We were in the twos. And so you have some backlog there. You got some people that are sitting on vehicles, and now all of a sudden this year they're showing up. So we got that. Number two, you got a shortage, like you said, Paul, of new vehicles. So if I can't buy a new one, I got to fix the one I got. So add that on top of it. Number three, you have a shortage of people. So whether it's technicians or it's people handling the calls, you got people calling a second and third time.
And they don't always call back. If they don't get the satisfaction they're looking for, they don't always go back. And if I can just jump in here for a second, I want to just illustrate what that 1.6 really means. BC, before COVID, when we had that one call, okay, in the overall volume of calls, a large percentage of those calls were missed, right? A large percentage of those calls were missed when we had one call per customer, right, as opposed to the 1.6. Now, we also had more people then handling the phones. So if you want to just do some quick math in your head here, we missed a big chunk of the calls when we had more people to answer the phones. Now we have less people to answer the phones, and we have 1.6 times the amount of calls. You have any idea how much money that translates into if you don't do something different to accommodate that additional need? Sorry to cut you off.
No, this is good. So, and I'm looking at some of the notes. John, thank you for that. You've been a huge part of the solution. So you've been a great partner. He's an incredible fixed ops leader. John Frazier. Paul, I see your comments there. With the average age of vehicles in operation hitting 12 years of age, sweet spot for fixed stops are those 3 to 8 year old vehicles. So one of our partners is General Motors. I was Paul, and so they have the 7 to 12 months, and then 13 to 72, and so they're fishing in those two pools. One of the things that I've looked at when I started the TRAVER Connect service BDC piece was we've always spent so much buying the customer. And on the front end, we call it cost per retail unit or CPU, right? PVR, per vehicle retailed. You take your advertising expense. If it's $100,000 a month and you sell 200 cars, you spend $500 a car. But we've been retaining about a third of our long-term customers, that 5-year window, only about a third of those folks for decades, right? That's not a new problem. Does everybody agree with that? That's not a sudden problem. So the real issue is it's sort of like how we look at this business. And so what we've invariably been saying is, well, that's okay. We'll just go spend money. We'll buy another customer. But to me, the moat in our business is the fact that we write the check once, and we've actually propped up the Meinekes, the Jiffy Lubes, the Pep Boys. Don't you agree? I mean, we've actually put those folks in business because we put the vehicle on the street, did we not? And so that is our customer. So, to me, it starts with the call, without a doubt. There's things you can do in the call that I would love to be able to get into tonight and share with you guys, whether we're doing business together or not. That's immaterial. To me, this is about sharpening the saw and or sharpening the axe. And so that's really what I'd like to do, is give to you guys in any way I can tonight, and kind of there's phraseology, there's things you can say and do in the calls. And I want to tell you something, we're not perfect. If you're looking for that perfect BDC company, keep looking, but promise me you'll call when you find them and we'll write the book together. We're not. We screw up every day. We'll schedule vehicles in the wrong shop or promise a loaner when we shouldn't. But when you're handling 1,000+ calls for a store and 900 of them are pretty good, and the customer feels that they were treated well, and you see that business growing, most service managers look at that and say, we're moving the chains. We're scoring points, and we'll figure out that other stuff. If you're screwing up all the time, or if it's just an answering service, whether you've built it internally or externally, that's your chance to relook at this and say, hey, did I miss the mark? Is there more here? Kind of thing. So some thoughts there. What did Paul say here? John, DRS tools properly implemented and following great process, dealers are cutting back on the number of people. Great point. Will fixed ops get to a point that hot friction points are eliminated? So, Paul, I mean, obviously, we're guessing here a little bit, but I do see trimming back, right, on heads. Can I take you guys down a road on that topic and show you something? Most stores, when they call us, they're kind of already locked in on, most of them, on doing it themselves. And we have software tools that are pretty cool that can enable you to see your average speed to answer. You can see how many calls each agent took. You can listen to calls. You can see scorecards. And it's the most inexpensive platform out there. There's no click charges. We spent years developing this and a lot of money.
It's got to be a real eye-opener, because we always, I don't think we're always honest with our self-assessment. I mean, that's just human nature. And I don't think we realize how long it takes for us to answer the phone. Jeff put here a study that he saw, said he missed 35% of inbound calls to service on any given day when fully staffed, which is almost never.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff, what kind of brand is that? What kind of brand is Jeff running? Is that Jeff, multiple brands?
What store are you in, man?
I'm just curious.
So when you implement these tools that tell us the things, how long before the call's picked up, how many calls are we actually dropping? Yeah. And then, anything that can be measured can be affected in a positive way. Anything. I don't care what it is. And I'll give you an example, kind of off topic, but I'm proud of it, is I'm on a weight loss journey, okay? And I never realized, and it's no different than some of the stuff you implement, I never realized how many calories I put into my body on a daily basis. I had no idea. I thought nothing of it. But I got these two great apps. I got this Fitbit thing that measures my vitals 24/7, and it's very simple math. I want to lose X amount of weight as quick as possible. So that means that I can now eat this many calories. It's calories in and energy out. Okay. So the program tells me I can eat 1,635 calories, which is good. But I'm always a 10x kind of guy. I want extra results. So where I kill it is I'll spend 2 hours a day in the gym on the elliptical. So now instead of that 1,600 calories becomes 3,900 calories. So I always have 1,500 calories left over at the end of the day. I'm never hungry. I eat whatever I want. And I dropped 12 pounds in 4 weeks. I've got another 23 pounds to go, and I will get there. Why? Because it's math. And why I bring that up, it's no different than what you do, because your tooling measures what they're currently doing. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you're able to gauge, you're able to monetize the hurt in CDK speak as to what it's costing them. And now you can formulate a plan because you've measured what they're doing. You know what you can do based on a lot of history and experience to fix that.
Yes. First of all, congrats on the weight loss. You do look great. And after the knee replacements, I'll never forget those pictures. You went through it for sure. So well done. Okay. So Jeff, I see your answers there. Okay. So imports, so volume. Okay. Let me see if I can't give you guys some numbers and just sort of show you how to self-diagnose this. So if you know that if you have a 1,000-euro store, you're going to get 700 calls. There's the first thing you got to think about. Number two is how many hours are you open? So Monday, let's say you're open, 7 till 6. That's 11 hours, right? And same thing through the week. And Saturday you're open 8 hours. Most stores are open, I'm going to say somewhere around 70 hours a week. Real aggressive stores are going to be maybe mid to upper 70s. Sleeper stores, kind of out in the country, not open on Saturday, might be in the 60s. What I'm saying to you is if you're going to hire somebody that you're going to dedicate and have them take the calls, then they're going to work 40 hours in theory. So you're not going to be able to cover all your open hours. So the question is, what do I do with the call? Like, do I send the calls to the drive? And to me, the epiphany is the service advisor, without a doubt, has forgotten more about scheduling these appointments than most scheduling personnel really ever want to know. And I did 54 workshops for GM in the last 6 months. And we had 2,000 stores attend that thing, all virtual, right here where I'm doing this with you. And I told them all this exact same thing, BDMs and service managers from around the country. And I said, look, it's not that the advisors aren't capable. They don't have the time, because what they're juggling in the drive, the amount of personnel in between cars, technicians, and parts, all these fun things that are going on, updating customers, right? Literally engaging the customer in the drive so they can discover and sell to the needs. It's just not, it's the last place you want to send your calls. So getting the calls out of the drive is step one. Doesn't matter where you answer them. You can answer them on the roof. That's the next step, how to answer them, but not in the drive. And to Paul's point, what we found is there's about 2 hours a day per advisor that you're giving back to them to sell. And so we have stores that in the beginning, we saw a half an hour lift when we just by taking the calls out. Now, we weren't providing any training. So we saw right away that just free time enabled them to shake hands, talk about the soccer balls in the back seat, build rapport, wiggle a belt, lift a hood, pull a dipstick, talk tires, and make a recommendation. Okay, so that was a step in the right direction. So get your calls out of the drive. Number two, recognize your hours during the week. So if you're open 70 hours a week and you say, okay, we're gonna hire 2 people. This is why most BDCs have struggled. They say, okay, the phones are ringing off the hook. General manager, dealer walks out and says, Paul, what are you doing? We just can't get to all the calls. Okay, we're going to hire a couple people. Okay, what are we going to pay them, everybody? We're going to pay them.
Hold on. Where are you going to get those people? Because I'm hearing from everybody, they can't find those people. Where are you going to get those people to answer those calls?
Okay, boy, you're dropping all the alligators in the water. Let's just assume it wouldn't be hard to find those people, but I'm going to acknowledge that right now in this day and time that we're all in, that is not a given. Even we're struggling finding good people. It's not that we're not finding them, but we have to work extra long, extra hard to find the right people. It's tough. It is tough. So you're going to have, I'm going to acknowledge that point and say it's not easy, but let's pretend, Keystone, let's just pretend you have the fruit tree in the backyard and you go pick a couple of people. So the question is, what are you going to pay them? And, most dealers will say, when they call in and say, look, we want to do this on our own. We want to know how you can help us. Okay, great. Tell me what you want to see. What does this look like to you? It looks like we think there's another 15 or 20 appointments a day. We think we want to get our advisors selling when vehicles are in the drive. We want to provide a better experience for the customer when they call in, or our hold times are too long and we're missing too many calls. All four say aye if that sounds familiar to you guys. Whether you're on the vendor side or the dealer side, just say aye right now in chat really quick. If that sounds like, is that English? That's pretty much it. I'm going to assume that's a yes. Okay. So we'll say is, okay, how many people are you going to hire? We're going to hire 2. What are you going to pay them? We're going to pay them $15 an hour. Okay, you can pay, great, $15 an hour. That's more than what most stores will say, by the way. Okay, great. You're going to pay Uncle Sam their share too, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So you're really going to spend $18 an hour. In 18, there's 2,080 hours in a year. So you're going to spend about 36,000 a year, or about $3,000 a month per person. You're going to have 2 of those. Okay, and so that's 72 grand. And all of a sudden it gets real quiet. Wait a minute, we're going to spend 72,000 answering our phone. Do we really want to spend 72,000 answering our phones? And I say, okay, well, actually, what you'll find is, that's right. You steal them from, hey, I love that, Mark. You're hired. Come help us. Okay, so for each agent at 15.
Oh, hold on a second. Good luck stealing them from Chick-fil-A, because my daughter is a manager at a Chick-fil-A, and she says that people are quitting just because they don't want to work.
Yeah.
So maybe find a different tree, Mark.
I'm looking to Christine, have the OEM apps like Toyota Connect or My Chevy, a lot of customers. Yes, Christine, some. Let me give you a quick sidebar there, and don't let me forget where I left off on these numbers, because this will help these guys. When I sold Traver Technologies to ADP in 2000, ADP had me go to all these OEM events. I was in Detroit, got a chance to see a bunch of stuff being done. And at that time, Ford had spent over 40 million. You remember some of the initiatives they had when we had internet, and they were serious about retention. And one of them was online service scheduling. And I honestly thought then, oh, finally, the internet will help us solve this. Customers can bypass the phones. They can just schedule on their own. Fast forward 10 years later, JD Powers, total appointments scheduled online, 9%. Look it up.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
No, I'm not. You and I aren't the most patient guys in the world. So let's move down the road a little further. 2015, look it up, 14%. So it only took 15 years to get 1.5 out of 10 people to go online and set their. So Christine, it's there, but it's kind of like there's a dichotomy and there are moving parts. Even AI, Christine, we've played with AI here. I told Paul when we were in the green room before the show started, I said, we've been playing with AI for a number of years here. We would love to be able to introduce that. There is some complexity when it comes to loaners, when it comes to, and then also the expectation of the customer. You can hear it in these calls as you listen. We're not there yet. And I just feel like it can happen. I just know that it's not yet. And there's so much money in the space. There's so many reputable companies that can help contribute to the space with AI, but I just don't see it quite happening yet. So I'm going to go back to the model. So if you're spending $15 an hour per person, then what you're spending to cover your calls is however many people times that number. So it's really 18 because of fringe, right? Your benefit load.
Yeah.
And so what we did is I started looking at it, and one day it just clicked, and I'm like, wait a minute. So that $1,000 store, we're going to need about $2,800 to cover their calls. But the difference is here, we're going to be open 87 hours a week. So we're going to throw a bigger blanket over this store than they're even open. So they don't have to hire multiple people. And then I said, okay, well, there's 4.3 weeks in a month, just like when they have their folks taking calls.
Yeah.
And so our actual cost per hour is $3.74. And I was like, wait a minute, something's wrong. I must have missed something. So I took the number, I divided by 374 again, and I said, no, that actually is right. So what happens in a lot of these calls is, and by the way, just so you know, our absolute lowest margin, most difficult to deliver product, what do you think it is? It's taking the inbound calls. It's not really what we want to do. But when you start getting down to the cost, it's a third of what it costs to build your own. And we have stores that have been with us for 8, 9 years, 10 years. And, that is one of the reasons they did it. So now cost isn't the only reason. We have other stores that have their own BDCs and they say, okay, Paul or John, in this case, they say, look, we want to keep our 2 people, but we're still not catching all our calls. Perfect. Let's do a hybrid. So we'll be there. So when somebody doesn't show, you're covered. And when there's not enough people to handle all the calls you're getting, you're covered. And it's all kind of going into one system. So that's another way to bring down your average cost. So I say that to educate our audience tonight, not to sell you. By the way, sell for me, the root word sell, if you look it up, comes from the Norwegian derivative selge, S-E-L-J-E, taught this for 30 years. It literally means to serve. So those of us in service that are afraid to sell, don't be afraid to sell, because literally that's all we are doing is educating and serving a need that's in front of us. When we take the calls, we have appointment coordinators here who really don't see themselves as salespeople. And we tell them, thank you. Good. Because we don't actually need salespeople. We just need folks that are helpful, that are friendly and kind. And we'll show you what to let the customer know, because if you don't, it literally is like saying you don't care about their visit. So many of these customers that'll call in, Paul, they're kind of, you mentioned Chick-fil-A before, but they're trying to do as little as possible. I just need a lube oil filter and a tire rotation. Okay, great. So we could just do that. You could take those chips off the table, move them through your shop loading system. We answer in 14 schedulers today. Bob Gower, our COO, tells me now, and I've watched it grow here, and it's pretty impressive. It's a training nightmare, but we handle it, and teams, including Techion, newest scheduler, Update Promise, another one, great tools. So, but as we take that call, what we know is there may be an open recall on that vehicle. I wonder if we should tell the customer. You know what? What's unique about that VIN is it has a certain amount of miles on it. And this would be the time to check and see if the vehicle needs more than that. Because if we don't, and they get in the drive, they meet somebody that's here in our show tonight, or one of your team members, and they're prepared, and so they say, actually, you have 35,000 miles on the vehicle, you're due for your 30K. Now, when they called and talked to me, it was going to be a 30-minute visit because it's just an oil filter. And they asked me, could you guys do that in less than an hour? Oh, yeah, absolutely. We can get you in and out. And I say yes because the store told us yes, say yes to that. Okay. But now they get in, they meet one of our professionals, and they say, we actually need a 30K. Now, there's some people that say, well, we're going to try and get them through. Of course we will. But the reality is that now we have a shop loading issue because we're selling, right? We're selling jobs, right? Not just cars here. We're loading jobs. And so that's where the opportunity in service BDC really is, gang, is letting the customer know up front. You can improve the experience. You'll increase the amount of drop-offs. If you have pick up and deliver service incorporated, you're about ready to walk into a silent gold mine. That's a stealth bomber if you got pickup and delivery coordinated into your scheduling process. Yes, there's more business rules. Yes, it takes a little more time. It may cost a little more. But I would tell you that I think that's also worth it. So I'm giving you a lot there. But so I gave you cost per hour, right? Mine versus a blended or just an outsource. You have that decision.
You've given them time. And what's key to remember is that it's not about getting the customer through the shop quickly. It's about making sure that every customer is educated as to what their car needs. What's good, sell the green. Right? Build that rapport. It's not always club them over the head. By giving them 2 hours or 2.5 hours, that enables your advisors to be able to build rapport with the customer, to show the customer that, hey, your tires are half worn, and this is the stopping distance based on how thick the thread is. We're going to keep an eye on it. We're looking after your safety, right? And when you said before about the phones ringing off the hook and the dealer, yes, we worry about the dealer hearing the phone ringing off the hook, but in my opinion, something even more important, if I'm a customer and I'm sitting there having my car serviced and I'm hearing a phone ringing off the hook, ring, 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 that's not going to give me a very good impression of that store, because I'm thinking, you know what? These people don't have their shit together. They can't even answer their phones, whereas the call gets routed to you. You guys take care of it. It seems like a very well-oiled machine, and based on the facts that I've discussed with John, it is a well-oiled machine because it's working.
And I think you mean John Fraser.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the time mileage recommendation, let me give you the commerce side of that. So not only is it the right thing to do for the customer, and that's enough in itself. I think we'd all agree. Let me give you the commerce side to Paul's point just a second ago here. Okay. What you're talking about is really big 5 things. Okay. This is what you should look for. This is what you should say in the call. You should say, okay, I can handle the oil change. I can certainly handle that for you and the tire rotation. Let me do this for you also. Let me check and see if there are any open recalls or recommended maintenance. So at least you know. So now those are the key phrases. So at least you know, and also let me do this for you. Okay. So those are key phrases that we teach. Are we perfect at it? No. But when you hear it coming out, you feel the connection in the call. And then what we do is our software takes and it looks, and I just ask if you're on the Paul, about how many miles are on the vehicle right now? Paul says, I don't know, about 35,000. Okay, great. 35,000. So we type that in and it'll pull it up. It's integrated. We're 3PA certified with CDK, and we integrate through Dealer Vault to pretty much everybody else. And we can get what we need. And we're looking for the big 5. We're looking for K services. We're looking for cabin air filters, engine air filters, tire rotations. These are basic, fundamental, interval-based maintenance items. We're not trying to change out timing belts here, folks, right? Real simple. And so all I want to do, okay, if the store has us doing recalls and we have that updated software available to us, we can also do that. And so we say, okay, Paul, this is what I see. I don't see any open recalls at this point based on the records I have here in front of me. So that's not absolutely guaranteed, but that's what I'm looking at. What I did notice, though, is that at 35,000 miles, you're due for your 30K service. Now, the oil change and the tire rotation you're coming in for, that's already part of it. So if you want to go ahead and get that scheduled, I can. Here's what's included. We'll change out your cabin air filter. And, we just kind of go down the list because it'll be right there. We tell him the price and we say, would you like to do that? Now, whether he says yes or no doesn't matter. But what happens is more than a third of the customers hearing it now say yes, and they're appreciative because they can plan on this visit. They know, okay, actually, I'm going to do this. If they say no, nope, that's right. And if they say no, it's still half a yes. Ask John Fraser, because now they go in the drive and John's team can go ahead and walk and let them know. And they're hearing the same thing. Oh, you're due for your 30K. Here's what's included. And now they're going,
reinforces.
Maybe I should say yes. And if they still say no, God bless, it's okay. And now they're down the road. And at some point they buy that lesson. Got it? At some point it's like, they did kind of tell me that a couple times. And like tires not being rotated is, I believe, one of the most expensive items on a vehicle today, because it affects alignment, it affects suspension, and it's the cheapest thing you can add. And you can add 20,000 useful miles of life to a set of tires if you rotate on intervals, right? Yeah. So there you go.
I get more miles on my tires than my tires are rated for, because the book says every 6,000 miles, rotate and balance. Yeah. Or it says rotate. I don't know if it says balance, but I balance them every time because I want to enjoy my ride. Everything that you're helping them with, and I'll repeat that, helping them with is for their benefit. And when properly communicated to them, an air filter is not just an add-on. It helps you breathe comfortably in your car. Who wants to get into a car that smells? How about allergens? Anybody suffer from allergies? Well, guess what? By making sure that your cabin filter is replaced, that's a good thing for you. Engine filter. efficiency, fuel economy. So everything that you guys pre-sell is pre-sold with value. It's not just you need it, here's what it is. You pre-sell it with value. So I love that.
Steve's comment here, Steve, I like where you're coming from here, and I agree with you. There is, what are those three words we all hate on Christmas Eve as parents? Some assembly required, right? Those three words, some assembly required. And in this space, when you start adopting technology with the consumer, it's more than some. I mean, it's like buying an IKEA package Christmas Eve night and somebody blindfolds you. You know, you got to put it together in the dark kind of thing. It's tougher. We haven't figured it out yet. We are trying on behalf of the industry. We're looking for basically things that the consumer will adopt and still score us well. And in the meantime, we're manning up personnel. I'll give you another tip, something else. These are some of our deep secrets, things we do here to try and impact the consumer quickly in this 3 to 4 minute call. Did you guys know that when you take a call like this and you use a word that ends in LY, when you receive what the customer's wanting to be done, that you can take control of the call much more quickly. You can impact that customer in a way that where they begin to believe quickly that they're talking to the right person. So watch. If you called in and said, you know, I want to get the oil change and tires rotated, we would teach words like certainly, definitely, absolutely, easily, anything that ends in LY. So it sounds like this. Oh, absolutely, Paul. I'd be happy to help you with that. So right away, Paul thinks, okay, I'm talking to somebody who knows what they're doing. If I said, oh, I can help you with that, I'm still being nice, but you feel the difference already, don't you?
Yeah.
So when we score calls internally as part of the QA program and part of the reward and bonuses that we pay out here, we're hunting early for the LY word. Now, if somebody uses an LY word 3/4 of the way through the call, it's not the same thing. It's right there at the handoff at the beginning. So there are little things you can do that make a big difference. Time mileage recommendation is one. So if we do the math, if a third of your consumers say yes, you're going to see the average spend is around $50. If we're just talking tire rotations and cabin air filters and things like this, and you take that and you divide it by the 1,000 calls that you handled, you're going to be somewhere between 10, 20, 25, maybe even $30 of an appointment of customer pay revenue. And that cost, whether you're doing it on your own or you have someone doing it for you, will be fully absorbed, and there'll be customer pay revenue left over. Your service BDC literally is free. I got a phone call from somebody in 2012, and and I'll tell you who it was. It was Kevin Smith at Dynatron. And Kevin said, John, he goes, you got to differentiate this. And I said, Kev, I'm a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest already. This is like getting on the Titanic, taking me farther than I want to go, costing me more than I want to pay, keeping me longer than I want to stay, like that. And he's laughing. And he said, no, seriously, just think CRM, all your CRM days. He goes, how can you talk about, pre-selling? And I thought, that's kind of dirty. I'm not sure that's what we're doing here. And he said, you need to think about this from a CRM standpoint. And then he got me. And I was like, huh. And he said, you know the flow. You've done service training when you were still back at Russ Darrow in Wisconsin. I said, yeah, that was a long time ago, but yes. And he said, well, it's going to be a need. And so we started this in 2012, Paul. And I got to tell you, I got the stripes to kind of prove it. It was a beating. It took a long time to get to where we are today. But most of our stores, net, we can generate more customer pay revenue taking the calls than they pay us. If you say, okay, our gross margin, we're a domestic store, we're at 50%. If you're an import, you should be at 60. If you're a luxury, you should be at 70. If we just say 50%, if we're generating $10 and your gross margin is 50%, that's $5. Well, I can tell you, we cost you less than that per call, for sure. And we're generating more than that. So that's kind of a real simple way. So those are sort of some of the ahas. If you have your own team doing it, that's an area where the software should guide that. The training should guide that. So anyways, I'll shut up and let you guys ask some more questions.
Here's where the rubber meets the road for me, John. When a customer comes in and they ask for the person that they spoke with on the phone as though that person works in the store. That's huge. We've all we've all called into companies and called into stores and businesses where we know that it's an outsource that's handling their calls. And I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of those calls kind of went sideways because when I ask for something, I'm not given information as though that person has taken ownership of the answer or even understands fully what I'm trying to find out. So when somebody comes into the store and they're asking for the person that they spoke with as though that person was in the store, that means that they trust them, they like them, and they've bought into the education that that person gave them over the phone. Because as you said, if most people are like me, and my wife will say hopefully not, but if most people are like me, we want to, as a consumer, be guided through the process by a knowledgeable, compassionate professional that not only understands their business, but they understand me, their customer, and they can help me through that journey so that all I have to do is say, where do I sign?
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah. Yeah. I see a couple things. Joe Clemente, so good to see you. We were talking about you earlier with AutoThink offline, and Bob Gower, our COO, has jumped in. Good to see Bobby. You need to get Bob on this show one of these nights.
If Bob and I get on this show, we're 5 hours because when Bob and I get on a call, they're some of the best conversations that I've had with anybody, and we just enjoy spending a lot of time on the phone.
He's the metaphor master. You know, he was my client years ago in 1992. I would fly into Pittsburgh, and he was general manager for the Toyota store for Rorick. And Bobby and I just, I loved working in his store for him. And I was a real, just kind of underway with the BDC at that point. And Bobby joined our company in 94, 95. And then, of course, he ended up running it when I left in 2010 for ADP and took the BDC, the sales BDC overseas to China and United Arab Emirates. He's got a lot of experience, and some of the people here that have a chance to work with him really know. So helpful, friendly, kind is another. Bob's dropped that in there, and that's kind of where I was going. Bobby, you're reading my cliff notes. By the way, Paul, if you do have Bob on, you do have the mute button there, so you can kind of always control that,
No, because it's always so good. I want to talk longer with Bob.
Yep. Well, you got the after hours thing like Dave Foy would do, right? You can always do that. Okay. So our training group one day had asked me, they said, how do you sum this up? Like, what do we really do? And I was like, what do we really do? Okay. And it just came out. And I said, well, we really just do 3 things. We're helpful. And I said, let me unpack helpful. In the call, when you're taking these calls, whether we're doing it in the store and we're going to train them how to do it, or we're doing it for them, or both. Helpful, you cannot be helpful unless you know how to help. So like if your kids are too young, hey, help me. Oh, you get out of my way. You don't know what you're doing, right? That's not helpful. Somebody's needing first aid. If you don't know first aid, you can't be helpful. All you can do is maybe call 911. Right. So the first thing we have to do is be able to help. And the way we do that is through training, through education, through our learning and development programs. So everything up from just knowing automotive. You don't have to be a technician to take these calls, but you got to understand the difference between a bulletin and a recall. You got to know this particular vehicle, what's there. You got to know how the consumer hears that, not so much the tech talk as it is the consumer talk, right? And it kind of guides them. So that's helpful. Friendly because the epiphany is these customers aren't always nice,
You're kidding.
Yeah.
You mean somebody's going to call and try to rip you?
Yeah, no matter how thick your skin is. I mean, some folks, it's just, this is a grind. It's like going to the dentist office. So we always say, look, even when they're not, we are, so you got to hire people that if you hire somebody that's a former MMA wrestler, you may have a problem on your hands. You know what I'm saying? They may snap one day. So you got to source properly. So that's the friendly part. And kind, what is kind? I always go back to the Ritz-Carlton, everyone. I always look at the Ritz. If you say at the Ritz, excuse me, where's your restroom? They will never, ever say down the hall to the right. If it's down, they will always say right this way, sir, right this way, ma'am. And they will walk you to the edge of the door to the point where you say, hey, I got it from here. Like you're kind of uncomfortable. So it's their mantra there is we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. I love what the general manager of the Ritz did 20 plus years ago when he taught that, and he just leveled the playing field for everybody. And so Kind for us is doing things like updating records. Why do we update records? Because what happens is, first of all, the data that you have in the DMS is about 40% inaccurate. And so a lot of the updates the customer's going to get are going to be driven off of that.
Good. It's even that
good. Maybe I'm a little PC here. I don't know.
Being kind.
Yeah. So there's that. And then you have the time mileage recommendation. Like, I don't have to do that. But if I do that, I'm kind of looking out for their visit so that when they meet one of these professionals in the drive, okay, I've allocated enough time today, or I'm dropping it off, or you're picking it up, or whatever. But like, I'm not now being surprised at 8 a.m. going, okay, so you can't do this in an hour. So how long do you need this?
Hold on a second. To Ron Usher's point, he says, remember some of the updates and recalls on the tech side may take up to an hour. Be sure to let the customer know about the added time. That ties right into what you just said, because if you're preparing them for what the manufacturer says their car needs to get the maximum life and enjoyment out of it, then you're going to have less of that friction in the drive when they're thinking they're in for a 10-minute job. And you and I both know nothing takes 10 minutes at a dealership.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right on point, Ron.
Yep. Yeah. Great. Joe St. John, brother, so good to see you. Joe and I are kind of connected at the hip. We're going back like 15 years, but he was in the store. Were you in Oklahoma, Joe, running that deal?
I think he's in Oklahoma.
Sales manager, I think. So let's see his question. In your opinion, how knowledgeable do you feel the BDC should be, or how much should they be able to answer for the customer? So you hear both sides. Okay. It's really answering that with a question is, what level of experience are you trying to drive on that call? I think what you'll find is there's a balance. It's kind of like sitting on the old teeter-totter. You kind of want to be able to straddle the middle, nobody else on it, So you want to have a constant feed of information to your agents. So you're going to have training time to grow them. But that doesn't mean they're going to use all that information. They'll use that almost subconsciously to guide the customer, and then consciously when they have to download key information to the customer. You also could do tiered, where you have like primary schedulers, and then you have like your power scheduler, which is your manager or whatever. You can do that too. I've seen that in some of the stores. So that may also help. What is this, Bob? John, they need to do everything to make the customer comfortable that you listen and heard them, offer time mileage recommendation, be able to handle packages, handle transportation, update records, but never diagnose the problem. Correct. Yep. Okay, John Canales. John, how are you? Do you see a lift in decline services offering instant financing? We did a pilot. This is what I love about your show, is this is just like open forum, right? We did a pilot with a vendor, and we dropped in a text message, John, the financing piece. What I would tell you is in the ecology of the call. So like if the consumer's calling in and we're already telling them they can finance, it's a red light for some of these guys. It's kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. I just want an oil change, man. I don't need a lobotomy or a heart transplant. Yeah. I'm just trying to get in and out, so timing, very important. I would tell you that the best place to drop that is either digitally once the appointment's set, once they're in. It could be part of your AI with your texting platform. Kind of go deeper on that later. And John, if you ever want to talk, holler. Paul, let me see. I got to put my shades on, you guys. I have data that shows a customer will pay $20 to $40 for concierge, $82.50 per hour. In other words, offsetting the cost. So Paul, here's the bottom line. Some of our stores charge for it and the customer will pay for it. Some of the stores want the customer to pay for it and the customer will pay for it. Bob and I have a view that, like, if you're chasing your units in operation, you're doing outbound calls, and you want us to truly be bringing in the sheaves, you know what I mean? Like, give us some ammo. Like, allow us to call Paul and say, Paul, our records indicate your vehicle may be due for its 24-month maintenance. And I want to reach out because You don't even need to bring it in. We can come pick it up. Based on what I'm seeing here, have you had the following things done? And if so, I can just coordinate a time for one of our drivers to pick it up, bring it back to you. And we kind of have his attention. I mean, it's just a differentiator. There's a group in the Midwest that is not a new car dealer. They're just a service chain. When I do this one particular workshop, I always use his 4 or 5 repair shops, and they have pickup and deliver, and they've had it for about 7 years. So to me, pickup and delivery is about being intimate with what your customer wants. It's no different than the great ones, the Steve Jobs of the world or Jeff Bezos. You know, you see those chairs behind me. There's not a meeting at Amazon for all those years when Jeff was there that didn't have one empty chair. And the empty chair always signified the same thing. It said, we're here on behalf of the customer who's, you know, vicariously not here, but they're represented by that empty chair. That's why we're here. So to me, if you really want those units in operation, well, first of all, you already wrote a check, so I'm pretty sure they're yours. Number 2, it's about peeling back the onion and saying, look in the mirror. What did Admiral Stockdale, Ross Perot's old running mate back in 92 or whatever, say? You know, it was about the brutal truth when he got out of Hanoi Hilton. It was about facing the brutal truth. Let's look at our retention process and say, okay, you know what? I want to redo this whole thing. I mean, I seriously want to dominate what we sell. Like, I want to own it. I want to build a moat around our units in operation where I can send out at Christmas, I can send out cards to my competition and just say 2 words, good luck, right? Because we do such a good job with them. Now, that's a high calling, and we're probably going to fail. What did Lombardi say when he took over the Packers? That first meeting, he said, by the way, they beat the Bears today. Let's go Pack. He said, gentlemen, we will pursue perfection relentlessly, and we will fail. But in pursuit of perfection, he said, we will accomplish incredible things, or something like this. I forget that last part. And you know what? Bart Starr called his wife. He called home. He said, honey, this guy's different. We will win. He said, I'm telling you, we're going to win. He's different. That year, they had a winning record. They didn't win it all. The next year, they won the world championship. They ripped off 4 or 5 of those. Then they changed the name of the world championship to the Super Bowl. They won the first couple of those. And then he left, went to Washington, got cancer, and he passed away. You know, the bottom line is what you can do with what you already have. You don't have vehicles coming to you that lack the need for service. You don't have a lack of calls coming to you. It's some assembly. What's going on with these opportunities? How do we get the butterflies to fly in formation? My oldest was a pitcher for years. He was drafted 4 times, played at TCU, went to the College World Series 4 years in a row. He was very, very fortunate to be part of a great program. And before every game, we'd talk. And, you know, I'd always say, how the butterflies? And he'd say, you know, as he got more experience, he'd always say this, they're in formation. And so to me, it's tomorrow morning is your 21% day, gang. 21% of your calls for the week are coming in tomorrow morning. They're going to hit you tomorrow. And so you're going to get overrun. Okay. But here's the cool thing about our space. In service, it's so predictable. So like we can regroup and over the next 6 months, build a strategy, a horse that you can ride and win with, that you can move the chains with.
You've been there and done that. So it's not that difficult.
It's doable.
You have the plan. John says, I've been talking to a lot of dealers and I've been seeing a decline in fixed absorption due to supply chain disruption. Any nuggets to share to overcome this?
So absorption, you know, it's interesting, John, because there are some dealers I talk to and they jump on that term and they get it. And there are others that feel it's an outdated term and they want to talk market share. But either way, what's cool about absorption is when we're talking about the truest sense, the original sense of that word is it's the percentage of overhead that service and parts pays for. So if it costs $100,000 to run that store every month, and then service and parts is generating $100,000 in gross profit, then it's 100% absorbed, or 120% if it's at 120 grand, or 80% absorbed if it's at 80 grand. So that term still works. Now, in some stores where they refinance the real estate and you got, you know, some padding and and rent keeps going up. And you go, why is rent going up? Those stores are
Monopoly
like,
money.
yeah,
Monopoly money.
yeah, they just go, I'm kind of squeezing Jello. I can't. And we always say, well, wait a minute. What's your market share? What percentage of the market share do you have? Because that number, like nobody can play with that number, right? And so the answer to that question is there's plenty. I don't know that I've seen any stores that stumble into success there. The ones that are succeeding, and I'm just gonna tell you, John Frazier is a beast. What he's done with competition already with the CDJ store he has in Georgia. He left Texas, went to Georgia, was recruited by a major dealer group, and he's done a great job. And he's got a team of people that are well trained, and he's chasing it. If you're looking for like what's actually happening in the trenches, John, I hope you don't mind, but that'd be a guy I'd tap him and just say, hey, what are you doing? So
He
have you
lives
had
it.
John on the show, by the way? Have you had him on the show?
Oh yeah. Oh, I've had him on the show a couple of times.
Okay, good.
We're actually due for a revisit.
Good. Like power users to me are the real deal. You know,
Right.
like that's the real deal. So there you go. John, I hope that gets you started.
He says he's old school.
I love it.
And then we got Steve Apicella answering calls in a timely fashion with knowledgeable people is an expectation. If your dealer isn't at that basic level, hire a solution. For those meeting that basic expiration in 2021 and beyond, a customer's experience and digital engagement are also an expectation. If you're not engaging at that level too, I'm sure someone else is. Contemplating that topic today is ridiculously past due. Delivering an Amazon-like experience is now essential before and after the vehicle sale.
Yeah. So, hey, Paul, here's what I would say to this. So the Amazon, I love going to that as an example of expectations, or Netflix. We want it now, boom, we got it. But here's what I would say. You should be pursuing customer experience in the lane. Okay, like that whole thing should be about experience. What it should look like is this: when the customer calls in, we catch the calls. Okay, and I will tell you candidly, in today's world, if you're answering those calls, this wouldn't be my normal answer. This is an inflated answer. My normal answer would be, 35 seconds or less. That would be ideal. In today's world, if you're answering inside of a minute, you're going to stand out in the crowd. Like if you're really in this game and you know what's really going on, less than a minute to the consumer, that's going to be like, oh, great. And those of you that are calling other entities during the week, maybe a delivery service for the house or something, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So like there are companies, major companies that have hired call centers to say our call center's overrun, but we're going to have somebody call you back in the next 1 or 2 days. Like my wife has used Restoration Hardware for some remodeling stuff, and between plumbing and Restoration Hardware, both of them have hired separate call centers to answer the phones, and it takes 4 minutes to get it to answer. And then that person says, I can't actually help you, but somebody from Restoration or somebody from US Electrical is going to be calling you in the next day or two. That's how far back it is. So I'm just saying, like,
day or two.
Yes. So when I tell you this, I'm not making this up. This is kind of okay. So we catch the calls. Then we have helpful, friendly, kind in those calls. We update records. We use LY words. We do a time mileage recommendation to make sure they know what's coming, so they can kind of prepare. Doesn't matter if they say yes or no. Then they come in. We got advisors freed up. We acknowledge the customer professionally, establish a business relationship. We walk the vehicle. We check the odometer. We do the fundamentals in the drive. Jeff Daniel, John Frazier, amen from the choir on that, right? I'm pretty sure. Okay, now we have the vehicle. Your texting platform's got to be humming. You got to have the gerbil fed and on the wheel. Like those updates got to be humming, okay? Because if not, now the calls are coming back and you're dropping the ball. And it's kind of like, I'm fighting to get back to you. Like, remember, everything was cool until now. Even if it's, we're going to need your vehicle longer, whatever, we got to spend more money. Here's what we found. But
zero moment of truth.
You got to minimize the status calls that are coming back. You should be no greater than 20% of your total calls at status. And if it is, you have an experience problem, and it's going to start showing up in your CSI scores. I could probably do just a workshop just on that. So once texting's in play, we should probably get to the end of the vehicle being done. So when they come in, if they're picking it up, you got a red carpet opportunity. So we do an active delivery. We take them through what we did this time. Here's what's due next time. I'm going to go ahead and set a soft appointment now for such and such date. Don't worry
That's
about
key.
it. We'll firm it up as we get closer.
That's key. That's key right there, John, because
Now,
so many don't do that, and you increase your life cycle of service umpteen-fold by doing that.
no question. No question. So that's kind of your Ferris wheel, you know, and so, you know, you go, okay, but we're going to have some heat in there. Yeah, you're going to have heat in there. And you're going to drop the ball a little bit. But here's the thing. To the tune of 1,000 opportunities a month, which is less than the average store today. The average store writes 1,525 ROs a month in the U.S. per NADA right now, 15 and a quarter. So 1,000 is kind of a small, medium store. You know, it's not even a full-size store. And we have stores that are writing 4,000, 5,000 ROs a month here today. So, yeah, so there's that. We didn't talk about outbound tonight. We didn't talk about sales BDC tonight. And there's so much there too, but
you know what I'm hearing here, John? I know your schedule is crazy, but I want you to dig, because it sounds like we need to have you on another time for the rest of it. This is a teaser. We got so much today, but there's still a big chunk. So I'm going to put you on the spot right now and say we want you to come back for a follow-up. So you're going to have to check your schedule, and we will reconvene and coordinate.
Sounds great. We'd be happy.
This was awesome. Wow. An hour, you know, every time I think, wow, an hour is a long time, but an hour came and went 6 minutes ago. And there's so much more to cover. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing with the audience here some of the things that are going to make them money, flat out, and satisfy their customers better than they've been in quite some time. Michael says, great idea. So I think everybody wants you back, John.
Love to be here. And it's a pleasure running with this group. This group is unique. It's a passionate crew. You guys are true drivers. You're making change in the industry. You love the industry. And, you know, there's wisdom in the counsel of many, right? You put us together and we can figure this stuff out. And I would tell you, we're no smarter than the next guy, but we have the benefit of a fairly large contact center. We have tons of iterations, millions of data points, patterns, people, really a lot of good people. Rob Canales, our VP of Product Dev, who helped drive the Service BDC capsules on here tonight. Bob Gower, our COO. These two guys were with me in Houston at TRAVER Technologies. They're winners. They're passionate. And they would be also first to tell you that we don't do this in a vacuum. We have a lot of really good people here that makes this thing go. So
we have a lot of thank yous coming in. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate the support. If you see value in what we talked about here tonight, please share this episode with your automotive community, because that one person that improves their business makes it worthwhile for everybody. And John Fraser says, definitely need another show. So thank you all. I wish you a safe and successful week coming up. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Thanks again, John.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.